first evaluation question, our genre was a war documentary, and the ways in which we used the codes and conventions that we saw from our analysis were that for the interview scenes we used a lot of cut scenes and quick scenes, and we used a lot of going from one interview to another, which we saw a lot in the analysis of our documentaries, for example Sicko. And for the interviews we used normal, modern and everyday lighting, which is what we found was most commonly used as a code and convention, as a lot of the interviews were present day that we found. For the war scenes, we found from our analysis that a code and convention for that kind of thing was to use a lot of dull colours that looked bleak and dingy and stuff, and we tried to follow that by using sepia in our war scenes, and all of our war scenes and the olden time footage, we tried to use sepia throughout it, so we tried to conform to that code and convention. The setting for the whole plot was 1940s England, which is a code and convention that we found, that it was always more older and not really modern day at all. We also stuck to the idea that the plot would be based around the idea of good versus bad, where our main characters were Jewish teenagers who were in the good and the Nazi soldiers, which were the bad. We conformed to that code and convention, as well as there being fighting and a chase scene, which we found in all of the war films. We developed the codes and conventions by, although it was centred around the war and the intensity of the war, we developed it by making, although it was centred around it, by elaborating on it, by making that the main feature, and then going through the events that would happen around it and trying to build the intensity of the war. Also, our chase scene tried to build on that. We also challenged the codes and conventions of a war documentary by, as from what we saw, it was more male dominated and one male adult protagonist of the film, and we tried to challenge that by having 4 main protagonists instead of 1, as well as them being teenagers. They're all 17-year-olds, and usually from what we saw it was more adults that were the protagonists and always the good guys, and we developed that and challenged that, as well as the fact that 2 of our protagonists were female, which was definitely a change from what we saw from our analysis, as they were all males.